All right, let's dive in. Today, we're talking about something huge that just dropped from OpenAI. It's their new model, GPT 5.4. And look, this isn't just a small step up. They're pitching this as a professional AI copilot that can literally do your work for you. So let's get into what that actually means. For the longest time, we've thought of AI as, well, a chatbot, right? Something we talk to, a brilliant conversationalist. But what if it could do more than just talk? What if it could stop just talking and start doing things on your behalf? That's the huge question OpenAI is trying to answer with this release. So here it is, the official word from March 5th. And the key phrase here, the one you really need to focus on, is designed for professional work. This is a huge signal. We're moving beyond just making better chatbots and into the world of a tool built specifically to handle the messy, complicated, multi-step stuff you do at your job every single day. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at its new role as a professional assistant. Then we get to the really mind-blowing part, how this AI can actually use your computer. After that, we'll check out some of the smarter tools under the hood for developers. And finally, we'll cover the essentials, how to get it, what it costs, and the safety side of things. All right, let's jump into our first section. How is GPT 5.4 built to be your new professional assistant? And how is it going to fundamentally upgrade what we all call knowledge work? The stuff you do at your desk all day. Okay, let's get straight to the data, because this chart says a lot. It's showing a benchmark that tests the AI on real professional tasks. Think building a sales deck or a financial model. Now, the previous model, GPT 5.2, was already really good, winning against a human pro about 71% of the time. But just look at that jump for 5.4, all the way up to 83%. I mean, that's a huge leap. We've crossed a major threshold here. The AI is now consistently outperforming actual human professionals on these complex jobs. And look, it's not just about some abstract benchmark. People out in the industry are seeing it firsthand. The CEO of Mercor, Brendan Foodie, points out exactly where it shines. Those long horizon deliverables. We're talking about those really big, complex projects, building an entire presentation from scratch, creating a whole financial model. The kind of stuff where older AI models would just fall flat on their face. So let's dig into these upgrades a little more. First step, spreadsheets. It's now scoring over 87% on tasks a junior analyst would do. That's a massive jump from the last version. Next, presentations. Human reviewers actually preferred what the AI made 68% of the time, saying it just looked better. And maybe most important of all, documents. A 33% drop in false claims. That means you can actually trust it more, which is absolutely crucial. All right, so all of that is pretty impressive, right? But now we get to what might be the single biggest game changer in this entire release. Section 2. This AI can actually use your computer. It's a true AI copilot. And let's be super clear here. This is a first for a model like this from OpenAI. It has native computer use capabilities. It's not just spitting out code for you to run. No, it can actually click the buttons and type on the keyboard for you. So, you might be wondering, how on earth does this work? Well, it's actually a pretty straightforward process. First, the model basically takes a screenshot and sees your screen. Second, it figures out what it's looking at, all the buttons, the text, the icons. Third, it actually sends mouse and keyboard commands, just like you would. And finally, it uses those commands to move around in your apps and get stuff done. Think about it. It's like someone is remote controlling your computer, but that someone is an AI. And if you're not convinced, just look at this. On a benchmark for navigating a computer desktop, its success rate is 75%. That's incredible. But the kicker here is that it's now better than the average human, who scores around 72%. For these tasks, the AI is officially better than us at using a computer. Let that sink in for a minute. So the big question is, how is all this even possible? Let's pull back the curtain a bit in Section 3 and see what's going on under the hood with some of the smarter developer tools. Okay, one of the key innovations here is something called tool search, and an analogy is probably the best way to get it. Imagine the old way was like forcing the AI to lug around a giant toolbox with every single tool it might ever need. It's heavy, it's slow, it's inefficient. The new way? It just gives the AI a key to a huge warehouse. When it needs a screwdriver, it just runs in, grabs a screwdriver, and comes back. Way more efficient. And in this slide, it just lays it all out. The old way meant jamming every possible tool into the prompt, which made everything slow and expensive and just cluttered things up. This new tool search is fast, it's efficient, and it means the AI can work with way more tools without slowing everything down. And the result of this new approach?
What does it actually mean in practice? A huge 47% reduction in tokens, that's the data it processes, on a key test. For anyone building with this stuff, that means one thing. It's cheaper and it's faster. Simple as that. But wait, there's more. The upgrades don't stop there. It's now matching top-level coding performance, but with less of a delay. It's getting way better results on tricky front-end design tasks. It even has this new skill for visual debugging. And on top of all that, its ability to search the web as part of a task is up 17 points. All in all, it's just a massive step up for anyone trying to build things with AI. All right, let's get down to brass tacks, the part I know you've all been waiting for. Section 4, the practical stuff. How you can get your hands on it, how much it's going to cost, and how they're trying to keep it safe. So, the big news? You can start using this thing like right now. It's available for anyone with ChatGPT Plus, Team, and Pro. For developers, you can get at it through the API and Codex. Oh, and get this. The context window, it's now up to 1 million tokens. That is an absolutely massive amount of space for handling huge documents or really long projects. Okay, let's talk money. So if you just look at the table, you'll see the per token price is a little bit higher than the last version. But, and this is really the key takeaway here, OpenAI says that because it's so much more efficient, the total cost for a job is often lower, just because it gets the same work done using way fewer tokens. Now, obviously, giving an AI the keys to your computer, that comes with some pretty serious questions, right? So OpenAI is making it clear they're focused on safety. They've classified this thing as having high cyber capability and are putting extra monitoring and controls in place to try and prevent any misuse. And I think this quote from the CEO of Zapier really just nails it. He calls it the most persistent model to date. He says it finishes the job where other models would have just thrown in the towel and given up. That persistence, that ability to not quit, that's the real game changer here. And that really brings us to the final question, the one I want to leave you with. This technology isn't a chatbot anymore. It's an agent that can run your software. So think about it. When this thing is on your computer, ready to go, what's the very first thing you're going to ask it to do?
All right, if you work in finance, you know the pain. You know the spreadsheet grind. Well, today, we're going to look at a new AI tool that just might, end that grind for good. Let's dive into ChatGPT for Excel.
So let's just start with a question and be honest with yourself here. How many actual hours have you lost staring at a spreadsheet? I mean, really think about it. All that time wrestling with formulas, hunting for that one single broken cell reference, or just manually updating models line by line. Look, it's a universal feeling, right? If you're in finance, you know this pain. That manual work, it's not just slow and tedious, it's a total minefield for errors. We've all been there. One wrong cell reference, and poof, an entire projection just goes completely sideways. It's a huge, huge problem. But there might finally be a real solution. And that solution, well, it comes in the form of your very own AI Excel assistant. And let's be clear, we're not just talking about a minor speed boost here. No, this is about fundamentally changing the entire way you interact with your data. So what exactly is this thing? Well, it's an Excel add-in, and it's called, you guessed it, ChatGPT for Excel. The concept is actually really simple, but it's also kind of revolutionary. It puts the full power of ChatGPT right inside your workbooks. You can literally just tell it what to do, in plain English, and it'll build models, run scenarios, and pull out the answers you need. It's pretty wild. Okay, so here's the breakdown of how it actually works. First up, you can build and update models just by describing what you want. No more complex formulas, just tell it. Second, you can let it loose on these massive complex spreadsheets, and it will actually reason across them, explain what's changed, and even fix errors for you. And third, and this one is absolutely crucial for trust, it shows its work. It doesn't just give you an answer, it explains its logic and links everything back to the specific cells it used, so you can always verify the output.
But, a powerful model is really only half the story, right? I mean, you also need solid, reliable data to feed it. And that brings us to the second major piece of this puzzle, getting trusted financial data piped directly into ChatGPT.
Because let's face it, that really is the other half of the battle for any analyst out there. You can have the most sophisticated model in the world, but if you're feeding it outdated or unreliable data, well, your analysis is basically worthless. Just that friction, the hassle of getting good data into your workflow, is a massive, massive time sink.
And this is where the second major update comes into play,
OpenAI is integrating data directly from the absolute heavyweights of the financial world. I mean, we're talking Moody's, Dow Jones Factiva, S&P Global, the list goes on. What this means for you is that you can pull trusted, real-time market and company data right into ChatGPT to power your analysis. You don't have to leave, you don't have to break your workflow. It's a huge step toward having this single, streamlined process.
Okay, so we've got a powerful tool and we've got integrated data. That's great. But the big question is, can you actually trust it? Let's dig into the performance and the security that really make this thing enterprise-ready.
Yeah, and this is important. This isn't just running on some standard off-the-shelf version of ChatGPT. Nope, it's powered by a brand new model, GPT-5.4. And this one has been specifically optimized for the kind of complex logic and deep reasoning you need in financial workflows.
And you can literally see the performance jump right here. OpenAI ran this internal benchmark, simulating real-world investment banking tasks. Now look at this. The previous model, GPT-5, it scored under 44%. But the new specialized GPT-5.4, it just about doubled that score. The difference is night and day.
Yeah, an 87.3% score. I mean, that represents a dramatic improvement in its ability to handle really complex stuff, like building a full three-statement model with all the right formatting and citations. This isn't just some small step forward, folks. It's a massive, massive leap in capability, especially for these specific high-stakes kinds of tasks.
And look, it's not just about benchmarks, right? Early adopters are already seeing the real-world impact. This quote here from Amr Alaban at the investment firm HG, it really says it all. He talks about how it has materially accelerated their workflows, and that frees up their team to focus on what humans do best: judgment, debate, and making those tough calls.
Of course, none of this matters one bit without airtight security, especially when you're talking about finance. So you'll be glad to hear this whole thing was built with enterprise-grade security right from the ground up. You get robust access controls, you get full data encryption, and this is probably the most important part, your firm's sensitive data is not used to train the models by default. That's a huge deal.
So, let's zoom out. What does all of this actually mean for the future of finance? Well, what we're seeing here is a major shift, a move away from all that manual grunt work and a pivot towards a much more strategic focus.
Let's just put it side by side. The old way? That was hours, just countless hours, spent on manual formulas, chasing down data, and double and triple checking for errors. The new way promises to automate a whole lot of that, freeing you up for higher level analysis, better strategic decisions, and, actual execution. Just think about that for a second. Less time on the data plumbing, and more time to maybe model second-order effects, or explore entirely new types of risk analysis that were just too complex to even try before.
And really, this brings us to the biggest takeaway of all. This isn't just about being a little more efficient. It's about creating brand new opportunities. So I'll leave you with a final thought to chew on. When all of your most tedious, most time-consuming tasks are finally automated, what will you build with all the time you get back?
All right, let's get right into it, because we have some huge news coming out of Google DeepMind today. They've just dropped a brand new AI image model, and honestly, it looks like it's going to solve one of the biggest headaches for pretty much every creator out there.
So let's talk about that headache. If you've ever played around with an AI image generator, you know the deal, right? It's always this trade-off. You either get images super fast or you get amazing, high-quality, really intelligent results. It's always been one or the other. But what if you didn't have to choose? What if you could finally have both?
For the longest time, this has been the central problem in generative AI. On one hand, you've got these quick models that are great for just trying out ideas fast. And on the other, you had these slower, much more powerful kind of pro-level models. And it was always this constant balancing act. And to really get how we got here, you just have to look at Google's own journey. I mean, it was just last year that the original Nano Banana model completely took over the internet. Then, a few months after that, they dropped Nano Banana Pro, which was this serious tool for studio quality stuff. And that brings us right here, to today, and the combination of those two big ideas. So what is this big new combination? Well, it's called Nano Banana 2. And this is Google's answer to that whole speed versus quality problem we were just talking about. The real breakthrough here, the magic behind it, is how they did it. Nano Banana 2 takes all of that advanced smarts and creative power from the Pro model, and it mashes it together with the just unbelievable speed of Google's Gemini Flash architecture. It really is one of those best of both worlds moments. So the official name is Nano Banana 2, or you might see it as Gemini 3.1 Flash Image. But what you really need to know is this. It brings that high-speed intelligence to making images. And what that means for you is that you can edit and just try stuff out, iterate on your ideas faster than ever, without having to give up on quality. Okay, so what can it actually do? Let's get into the good stuff and unpack the features that make this model so darn powerful. First up, let's talk intelligence. The model is tapped into Gemini's gigantic knowledge base, and this is so crucial. It's also powered by real-time web search. That means it can draw specific things much more accurately. Because it understands the world so well, it can do things like create complex infographics, render really crisp, readable text for things like mockups, and it can even translate that text right inside an image. Now for what might be the biggest upgrade of all, creative control. You know, a massive challenge for anyone doing AI art has been consistency. You make a character you absolutely love, but then you can't get the AI to draw them again in a different scene. Well, Nano Banana 2 goes right after this problem with something they're calling subject consistency. And the solution is, well, it's a huge leap. You can now keep the appearance and the resemblance of up to 5 different characters consistent through an entire creative project. I mean, just think about that for a second. If you're making a webcomic or a storyboard for an animated short, for anyone telling a story, that is a complete game changer. And hey, it's not just for characters. The model can also hold on to the details of up to 14 different objects. So imagine you're storyboarding a complex scene or designing a whole product line. Now every key item stays perfectly consistent from one shot to the next. And make no mistake, this is not just a toy. This thing is built for real professional work. You get total control over aspect ratios, and you can generate images at resolutions all the way up to 4K. That means your visuals are going to look sharp on any screen, whether it's a quick social post or a giant widescreen display. So by now, you're probably asking, okay, this sounds incredible, but where can I actually use it? Well, the great news is it's rolling out today, and it's being put into a whole bunch of Google products. You're going to find Nano Banana 2 in the Gemini app, in Google Search, both in AI mode and in Lens. And for all you developers out there, it's in AI Studio and on the Google Cloud Platform. It's also being baked right into tools like Flow and even Google Ads to help whip up campaign assets. And here's a really critical point about how easy they're making this to access. In the creative tool Flow, for example, Nano Banana 2 is now the default model, and it's available to all users for, get this, 0 credits. That is a huge step in getting these powerful tools into more people's hands. Now, of course, with this much power, you've got to talk about responsibility. So Google is also really focused on provenance, basically helping all of us understand where AI-generated stuff actually comes from. They're tackling this with a 2-part system. First, there's something called Synth ID. Think of it like an invisible digital watermark that flags content as AI-generated. Second, they're using C2PA content credentials. This is kind of like a nutrition label for images. It gives you clear info about how AI was used to make it. And if you're wondering if people are actually using these tools, well, this isn't just theory. They are having a massive impact. Just look at this number, over 20 million. So what is that? That's how many times the Synth ID verification feature in the Gemini app has been used since it launched back in November. It just goes to show you there's a real demand from people to be able to identify and understand AI content when they see it out in the world. And that really brings us to the final thought here. We now have a tool that gives us professional-grade quality with nearly instant speed. It basically gets rid of the technical friction and just lets the creativity flow. So the only question left to ask is, when AI can create at the speed of your own thoughts, what will you imagine next? All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're taking a look at a really cool new paper about an AI that learns how to do something we humans are great at, but AI's pretty terrible at it, and that's exploration. It's a weird paradox, isn't it? We have these massive language models that can write poetry or debug code, but then they get completely stuck on problems that seem to require just a little bit of common sense or trial and error. So what's going on? Well, it all boils down to what we're going to call the stuck robot problem. So what is this stuck robot problem exactly? It's pretty simple, actually. It's what happens when an AI has a plan, that plan fails, and it just can't think of anything else to do. Just look at this example. It's from a simulated environment called Science World. An AI agent gets a really simple task. Turn on the red light bulb. The catch? The bulb isn't even in the room. Now, a person would look around and leave, right? But the AI, it just keeps trying the same command, focus on red light bulb, over and over and over again. You can see it right there in the graph. That purple line showing its performance, it's completely flat. It's learning absolutely nothing. And that, right there, is the heart of the issue. The agent is trying to exploit what it thinks it knows, but it's not exploring new ideas. It's trapped in a loop because it can't come up with a new strategy, like, maybe checking the next room.
The researchers behind this new method really hit the nail on the head with this quote. Our current AIs are incredible at using their huge library of existing knowledge, but the second that knowledge isn't enough, they hit a wall. So, the big question is, how do you teach an AI to be curious?
Well, the solution turns out to be surprisingly elegant and actually pretty human. You give the AI a way to remember what it's already tried and think about its mistakes. Think about it like this. What if, after failing, the AI could basically jot down a note in a notebook that says, all right, that didn't work, the bulb's not here, plan B, next time I should probably search the other rooms first. That simple act of self-reflection, that's the whole game changer.
And that brings us to this new framework. It's called EMPO squared. Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, I know, but the name tells you exactly what's going on. It uses an exploratory memory to boost or augment its learning process with some really clever optimization tricks. Now, what's so clever about the EMPO squared approach is how it learns. It actually builds a bridge between two totally different ways of learning. On one side, you have what's called non-parametric memory. That's kind of like writing down notes. And on the other, you have parametric learning, which is about fundamentally changing the AI's core knowledge. EMPO squared combines them to get the absolute best of both worlds.
Let's break that down, because it's a cool idea. Parametric learning is like studying really hard for a final exam. You're trying to bake that knowledge deep into your brain for the long haul. Non-parametric memory is more like using sticky notes to cram for a pop quiz. It's temporary, short-term guidance. EMPO squared basically uses the sticky notes to help it ace the final exam.
Okay, so how does this AI actually use these little tips it writes for itself to get smarter? Well, it happens inside this really powerful learning loop. The process is this really elegant, simple cycle. The agent tries something and it fails. Then it stops and reflects on why it failed, and it writes a tip for its future self. Next time, it consults that tip, and that encourages it to try something new, to explore. And here's the magic trick. Once a new strategy actually works, the AI doesn't just hold on to the sticky note. It internalizes that lesson, making that new skill a permanent part of itself. And these tips aren't just some abstract concept. Here are some actual tips the agent wrote for itself. Things like, you focused on the red light bulb but did not complete the task. You are in the hallway and need to find a way. I mean, come on, that's the AI literally coaching itself to think more critically about its own situation. That final step, internalizing the lesson, is super important. The technical term is an off-policy update, but you can just think of it like knowledge distillation. The agent learns from its success so well that it doesn't even need the tip anymore. The tips are like training wheels, and once the AI learns to ride the bike, they come right off. So the big question, does all of this actually work? Well, this is where things get really, really exciting. The results aren't just an improvement, they are a massive leap forward. Okay, so on the left, you see our old friend, the stuck robot, failing over and over. But on the right, that's the EMPO squared agent. After it fails, it gives itself a tip. The red light bulb isn't here, so you need to find it first, and then it immediately tries a new action, go to workshop. And it works. It broke the loop. Now, let's go back to those learning curves. That flat purple line, that's the old method, GRPO. It just gives up. But look at the blue line. That's our new agent, EMPO squared. It struggles for a minute, but once it starts using its memory to explore, its performance just skyrockets until it completely masters the task. And here is the big headline number. Across the entire Science World benchmark, EMPO squared showed a 128.6% performance improvement over the previous best online learning method. That's not just better, that's a whole new level. And just to be clear, it's not just beating one other model. This chart shows it's wiping the floor with a whole range of different AI learning strategies. You've got methods that just use self-reflection, methods that use online learning, and EMPO squared, with a score of almost 76, is more than double its closest competition. It's not even close.
So, why is this such a big deal? What are the real implications of an AI that can actually teach itself to explore?
This matters so much because it's a huge step towards building AI that can actually function in the real world, where things are messy, unpredictable, and don't come with a rule book. We need AI that doesn't just follow a script, but can figure things out when it runs into something new. And the research proved EMPO² can do exactly that. The scientists trained an agent on biology tasks, then dropped it cold into a totally new set of electricity tasks. And look what happened. That blue line, the EMPO² agent, adapts almost immediately and just keeps improving. The old model, that purple line, is totally lost. The new agent didn't just learn facts, it learned how to learn. So let's just recap the big ideas here. We started with this basic problem. AIs get stuck because they can't explore. The solution? Give them a memory to write tips for themselves. This lets them use those temporary tips to build permanent skills. And the result is an AI that doesn't just perform way better, but one that can actually adapt to new challenges.
And that really leaves us with a pretty profound final thought. We've managed to teach an AI to be curious inside a computer, and it completely unlocked its potential. So the real question is, what happens when an AI this curious and this adaptable starts exploring the problems in our world? What might it discover?